Hey everyone, you're listening to the Simple Electronics Podcast with your host, Dan from the Simple Electronics YouTube channel. And today I have, nobody special at all. I kind of shirked my responsibilities and didn't get anyone to come on. In fact, I actually had someone reach out at the last minute and tell me that he could join me, but then I ruined my voice talking to my students for the first time or meeting up with my students for the first time. So yeah, none of that, just me today. So if you don't like the just me episodes, feel free to skip. But otherwise, I'm just going to be talking about what's been going on, basically. So as a lot of you may already know, and some of you not, I haven't worked, in a full-time capacity for the last almost a year now, probably around a year. And that is coming to an end, at least crossing my fingers. The college has a program starting next week, which I should get a contract for. I hope so, at least, because, I'm the one who designed this program, me and another professor. So hopefully I get the job. But I mean, they told me that the job is mine, but that means nothing without a contract, basically. So I'll finally be working again, which is great because, I really could use the money at this point, but also a little scary because we still have the human malware going around, and it's actually increasing in numbers, then decreasing, then increasing and decreasing. So it's not really gone anywhere, but we don't have any more mandates for, masks and stuff like that. So I still wear mine around the students because basically if I get sick and I miss a week out of my 14 weeks that I have contracted for, that's like my income for the year, my reliable income for the year, right? So I have to take extra precautions to protect myself because we don't have any more, precautions in general for other people to take. So I'm a little nervous about that, spending time with students and teachers, especially since we had someone come in during the last semester, which had family members all sick with the human malware, and they came into school anyways and infected a whole bunch of people. So it's that kind of, I wouldn't say, I guess the right word is selfishness, right? Because they don't want to miss, class or work. I'm not saying if it was a student or a teacher or a staff member or anything like that, but because they didn't want to miss what was going on those days, they came in and infected a lot of the, students and teachers and staff. People got infected and then they had to cancel classes for like 2 weeks. And so a lot of people missed out on, the activities because of that. And not only that, but these people could have, sick people at home, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, basically what I'm saying is, you can't really trust people to make the best decisions for others. And so I need to still protect myself, but that's not as good as if everyone was protecting, type thing. So that kind of makes me nervous. But other than that, I think teaching is really what I was born to do. And so I'm pretty excited for that aspect, that I get back into teaching. I get to mess around with cool tools. I made a request last year for a couple of tools to be purchased, and apparently they were purchased. We had the budget for it at the college, so I'll get to be playing with that. And I'm thinking that this year I'm going to try to focus my efforts on my second YouTube channel, or my third, my other YouTube channel, Dan Fixes Cars, and my website, Dan Fixes Cars. Because I'll be in that environment where I can borrow tools, I can mess with tools, I have, cutaways of things, I have, lots of stuff there, which is educational. So I think what I'm going to try to do is on my lunch breaks, I'm going to try to film some videos, or at least film some footage, which I'll be able to take home and then make videos out of. There are quite a few things available there to make electronics videos with too. So I'm going to do kind of both. And the days which my voice is completely wrecked from talking, because it happens, you have to kind of, you have to shout for your voice to project in a loud shop. I'm going to try to work on written articles for both my websites, simpleelectronics.ca and danfixescars.com.ca.com. I think I bought the .com for that one. I'll put the links in the description if you really want. Some other things that I think might be interesting is if I do a couple of SE Condary, my secondary channel for the Simple Electronics channel, a little bit of like vlog almost, maybe not a vlog, but maybe a little bit of behind the scenes of how it works at the college. It's great because it's kind of like my coworker and we kind of run the show when it comes to the college, especially during the summer. There's nobody there. It's just us and our students. And so, hopefully I'll get you guys some good footage. So make sure you're subscribed to that. This is a great opportunity also to thank, my sponsors, which at the moment, the sponsor is only really one that sends, monetary value, which is PCBWay. And also the companies that have been sending me stuff to make videos on, because it's because of them that I have the content to make, around it. And it's thanks to Patreons specifically that I have like a constant sort of source of income. Things have been quite tight since the beginning, or since my contract did not get renewed because of human malware reasons last year. But sponsors and Patreons have made it so that I didn't go into massive amounts of debt this whole year. So I was able to just skirt away with that. So now it's going to be nice to make some money. And who knows what's going to happen after the 14 weeks. They're telling me that they're going to need me for a couple more contracts, but you cannot rely on what management says. And so I will be, hoping for the best, but also preparing for the worst. So basically, I have to have a plan where I ramp up the content on YouTube and on my websites, and so that I can hopefully eke out an existence between sponsors and Patreons and websites. I don't know what my website's going to bring, but for the moment, I'm working on it as if it's just free information for the masses, like free information for people to do what they please with, and hopefully that opens doors in the future. Who knows? Now, if my college job doesn't work out, I'm being told by multiple sources that high school shop classes, auto shop classes, need to be staffed. There is a dire need for staff. I'm being told this by principals, by professors, or I guess teachers. Are they in high school? I guess they're teachers, which is stupid, but I'll get to that shortly. I'm being told that all over the place, that there's a dire need for high school level teachers. Now, here's why I find it funny that I'm quote unquote a professor at the college that I work at, but I cannot be a teacher in high school. So in order to be a teacher, you need a teaching degree, a BEd, a Bachelor in Education. And I don't need that at all to be a college professor. And so if the college doesn't work out for me, I could always go get a BEd to become a high school teacher. And what I'm told is working is almost guaranteed, which is great. But a BEd will cost me 2 years of my life to get that degree. And the worst part is to get a teaching degree for like automotive type stuff. I would have to go to a school that's not even in my city. Actually, it'd be a little bit closer to where Gadget Reboot lives. And the even worse than that, that program is designed for a city, 250 kilometers past where Gadget Reboot lives. And so basically, I would have to attend courses in Kingston, Ontario. In case you're wondering where it is, I'm in Ottawa, Ontario. So Kingston, Ontario, 200 kilometers west of me. And then some of the courses will be held in Toronto, Ontario, which is another 250 50-ish kilometers away from Kingston, because the program is actually designed for people in Toronto to get their BEDs in, transportation tech and stuff like that. So it's going to be not only a huge expense, I'm not sure how much it's going to cost, but university is roughly $8,000 to $10,000 a year, for 2 semesters. And on top of that, I'll have to, not necessarily move, but I'll have to find housing over there, someplace to stay, and I'll have to invest time. And these programs are also given with a large chunk of it in the summer, and the summer is where I'll have the most reliable work at the college. So I'm at a kind of crossroads here. Am I going to keep trying to do the college work and hope that it gets better, like more constant, which, they tell me they're trying to, but I don't know what's going on there. Or do I invest, $20,000, 2-year program, plus, the money I'll have to spend on staying somewhere, plus, moving back and forth, and, the gas costs are ridiculous these days. And also risk not being able to take contracts for the college for something that may or may not be a sure thing, right? My passion is more teaching adults than kids. Kids are just really not my thing. There's a reason my wife and I don't have kids. We're just not we're not into that level of supervision and investment, like time investment and energy investment that is to raise kids. I look at you parents out there, and I don't know how the heck you guys do it. I can handle them in small doses. So we do have a provincial apprenticeship program that we get students through that are high school students. So I have to deal with them, for a little bit, like maybe 1/6 of what I do works with them. But I don't know if I could deal with them day in and day out. Not 100% sure. I know it's something that you can kind of get used to and get techniques for, but who knows? So, I'm really hoping college jobs will continue to appear, but I have no idea. Politically, here in Ontario, it seems like the investment in education is dwindling. So I don't know. I have to figure out something to do, because I can't keep relying on YouTube income, because it's honestly a lot of work to keep up with sponsors. Patreon's not a lot of work. They are the most awesome bunch of people. They just join and throw money into the hat, and they get early access to videos, but they don't even really ask for it. They just, they just take it because I offer it. Sometimes when the videos have like a really tight deadline, they don't mind skipping early access. They are great people. But the truth is that they don't pay as much as the sponsors do, which is also, I want to explain, totally fine. I feel bad taking money from patrons because really they're not getting a service in return like, let's say, PCB Way does, right? I'm advertising their service. The Patreons this is just out of pocket, out of the kindness of their heart. So I don't feel great about taking their money, but they're telling me that they feel good helping. So that's that. But I would much rather that all my content would be free for everyone, and, sponsors and ad revenue would support the channel. But it's just not a reality until I get 100,000 subscribers or more. I mean, there's just no way to do it. The AdSense revenue is up a little bit. My videos have been performing sort of like reciprocating between performing really well and performing not so well, but I think overall it's up a bit. So it's about $250 per month on ad revenue that I'm making, which is great. I'm not saying anything bad about it. It's just not enough to pay the mortgage type thing. So the Patreons and the sponsors, they're really helpful. So thank you to those folks. You know who you are. You guys helped me make it through, which is great. But I am just itching to get, some paychecks rolling in here. Also, another thing, you'll maybe see the mailbags will get a little bit more thick, THICC. And that's because my employer, the one I used to work full time for, the garage where I worked, they actually, how do I say this so it's not interpreted in a litigious way? They made a mistake on my vacation pay. I haven't taken vacation in like 4 years. So they haven't I haven't claimed vacation pay in like 4 years. And then when we switched our accounting software over, there was a quote unquote adjustment to my vacation hours, which said negative 139 hours. So it was just there in adjustment. I called HR and they said, no, everything looks good on our end. Management looked into it. They said, oh, no, it looks good. Must have been like we overpaid or something, or, put too much money in the vacation pay bank thing. And then I called the management software company and they say they actually accessed the back end. And they said, yeah, one of the accountants changed it, but they left the note area blank because they're supposed to write why they did the adjustment. So anyways, it was a big cluster. And then I was like, well, whatever. Like, honestly, at this point, I think I'm only staying there for the health benefits. In case you guys didn't know, here in Canada, healthcare is you pay out of your taxes. It's very little compared to what I hear our neighbors to the south pay. But anyways, we pay through our taxes, but it doesn't cover dental or eyewear and stuff like that. So my teeth are a crap show. So I'm basically staying there to stay current in the industry. I still talk to my coworkers, which I like, and for the insurance, because working contract work for the college, you don't get any insurance. So very recently, I logged into the management software to take a day off because it was supposed to be that the maker show or whatever, which was brought back into next month. But anyways, when I was taking that time off, I saw that there was another adjustment for plus 139 hours. So they had realized their mistake, I guess, after me hounding them, 6 months after, mind you. And there they were. My vacation hours were available to grab again. So I asked them to pay me out the whole thing. So I actually got like a decent sized paycheck. You can figure what a professional mechanic makes, and times that by 139 hours. So yeah, I was able to afford a new graphics card, which I didn't think was possible with my current finances. But I will be paying for it back in income tax for sure, the end of the next tax year, or this tax year. But for now, I am grateful. I will take it. And I had a chance to upgrade, a component of the last component of my computer that really direly needed an upgrade. And so now when I make these podcast episodes, instead of it taking approximately the length of the podcast to export, so if it's like an hour and a half podcast, it would take maybe an hour and 20 minutes to export in 1440p 60 frames per second. Now it takes something like 20 minutes or 30 minutes because of the RTX 3070 graphics card. And that's another thing. I think I said in the podcast with the Def Palm that I had a 3070 Ti Founders Edition graphics card at MSRP in my cart, and I couldn't afford to pull the trigger. Well, the Ti version, the upgraded version, came out later than the non-Ti, and therefore the MSRP was way higher. So the performance per dollar figures are not great even at MSRP. But the 3070 non-Ti at MSRP, because it was like a year older, it has a way better price to performance ratio. And so that's the one I managed to get, the 3070 Founders Edition. So I have that. It cost me, $700 and something, which is pretty much, it's a good chunk of the vacation pay I managed to claw back. And I feel bad, like weird saying it, because really I should have probably bought groceries with it, or saved it, because I don't know what's going to happen in the future with my job. But this is a big time sink waiting for stuff to export, especially when I'm doing podcasts with guests, where I need to kind of do it, record it close to when it has to release, because it has to stay current. But at the same time, I can't really do anything while my computer is exporting. It's being bogged down, basically. So this is a big help. When you're feeling productive and you have to wait over an hour for something to happen, that's a big hour of waste, right? So I feel good about that. It's a good upgrade. And I know graphics cards might get cheaper now, but when the next generation comes out, they might get more expensive again. It depends what happens in crypto, which I'm not invested in at all. So it just is what it is. As far as projects, though, I didn't get as much done as I was hoping during my time off. And I think the reason for that was the constant stress of needing to make, sponsored videos for my sponsors and still make them interesting enough that you guys want to click on them. And so when I released the video on the 74HC00, the series that I started, the response was great. I mean, the views were good. They're not they're not phenomenal, but they were good for my channel. And people said, "Wow, this is really cool." And then when I released the 74HC02 video, it just wasn't as great. The response wasn't as good. Just pulling up the content here. But I think I got around 1,500 views on the 74HC00. 1,600 views. And the 74HC02, the next one in the series, it got 300 views. And so now I'm wondering if I should continue those as, a sponsored series, because I don't know if you guys know how this works, but if your sponsor isn't seeing results, they want you to try something else, right? And so, I've got a new PCBWay video coming very shortly. Hopefully it'll be interesting. It's a little bit of a behind-the-scenes-y type video, but I also have some bigger projects with them coming up, and I hope that the bigger projects will sort of reignite the spark you guys wanting to click, because it's very hard. I'm trying to do this for income, but at the same time, I'm trying to use it to make projects that I've always wanted to make. And so I guess I can spoil it on here, because, we're almost halfway through the podcast already. And let's be honest, not everyone watches this far. But I have made a video with an Arduino as a USB keyboard, basically, right? So the Arduino Leonardo and the Pro Micro, those specifically, have the ATmega 32U4 on board. It's a different chip than the 328P we're used to seeing on the Unos, and the 2560 that we're used to seeing on Megas. That one has a USB HID support built in, and so I used it, to make a keyboard. You can send key presses, strings, whatever. So the project I'm doing with PCBWay is that I am making a 4x4 switch matrix and making myself my own custom macro pad. Now this macro pad, it can send any keyboard command because it has HID compliance on it. Human interface device. One of my commenters let me know what that was. I forgot to look it up first. And so the plan is to have this connected to my sim racing rig, which looks terrible at the moment, but that's okay. And it will be my button box. One of the games I like to play is BeamNG Drive. BeamNG? BeamNG. I think it's NG. Anyways, It's basically a physics simulator wrapped in a driving game. And there's all sorts of things you can do, like you can activate your differential lock front and rear, so that you need 2 buttons for that. You can turn on and off traction control and decide how strong the traction control is. You can turn on and off ABS, 4-wheel drive, etc. You need a lot of buttons. This is what I'm trying to say. You need a lot of buttons. And so using an Arduino Pro Micro or a Leonardo, you could map these to keys. And there are keys on your keyboard that aren't available just by typing a key. Like, for example, you go up to F12 on your keyboard, but I think you can send key presses up past F12. So these can be unique keys, and you can map them to controls in games, or you can map them to controls for live streams. Mind you, if you're doing live stream type stuff, I would strongly recommend you check out Dustin Watts's ESP32 Touchdown and the free Touch Deck. Those are cool projects of his. I need to make a video of it, but it's hard for me to time my video for when he's got some in stock. So check it out if you're listening to this, for sure. So I'm hoping that making a project like this with PCBWay will be an interesting enough project for you guys to be interested in to watch the video, and that'll bring the views up, and that'll make PCBWay happy. My big fear, because obviously PCBWay has been a big chunk of my income for the last bunch of months, is that they'll just say no more, right? Usually they're really good. They say, no, we love working with you. I just, one day I'm hoping there's no plug pulling, because then I'll be in real trouble. I still have Patreons, of course, but it's it's not as much money as PCBWay is sending in. So when you see a lot of creators with PCBWay or GLC PCB videos, you can rest assured that they're getting paid, depends on the creator, obviously, but they're getting paid a good chunk of money to do those videos. And it's like double your ad revenue for the month or more. So it's helpful. It's very helpful for creators that, and to fund stuff, right? Like, I've been staring down a set of solar panels for the backyard, and it's too expensive to pull the trigger. I've got a couple of projects, which I'll get into very shortly, that I want to do that I just can't justify the costs on. And so some of those are actually those projects that you've been seeing mailbag items for. In case you were wondering, the projects I keep alluding to with the micro switches, there was a ball joint, like a turnbuckle thing. That's for a USB shifter for my sim racing rig. So it's basically someone designed 3D printable parts to make a shifter, but you still need to put in your micro switches, and then you have to send all that to something like a Leonardo or a Pro for it to be USB capable. So that's one of the projects that's happening shortly. Down the line, it's coming very shortly. I still need to make a PCB for it, so that'll be a little bit. I'm also thinking of replacing one of the 3D printed parts with PCB material. In fact, it would be nice to replace all the 3D printed parts with PCB material, because if you can make it small enough, under 10 by 10, 10 centimeters by 10 centimeters, you could theoretically, you need 3 pieces, 3 different PCBs, I guess, or you can actually make 2. Anyways, you could basically get 10 of these shifters, or the core for 10 of these shifters, for $15 plus shipping, because it would be $5 per PCB, and you get 10 of those PCBs for your $5. So that's a definite thought here. Maybe I'll be able to build that. I mean, I don't think there's any reason why I couldn't, but it will take a little bit of, time in the design stages and stuff. And also working with vector graphics in KiCad is not easy, but I think it should be doable, which would be really cool. So there's that. That's a USB shifter. The other thing I wanted to build And this is, you'll see motor drivers. I have an optical sort of sensor, a position sensor, the Omron thing. A couple other things. Those are to build a sim racing wheel. Now, my goal was to get a huge 24 volt, 500 watt, basically it's a motor for an electric scooter. And it was going to be a direct drive steering wheel system that you can build for, a couple $100. Basically the price of a Logitech G29. You would be able to build yourself a DIY sim racing wheel. So a steering wheel with force feedback that you can use in video games or, in a sim rig. The problem is, when I saw that motor available for Prime, with Prime shipping on Amazon, it was $79. And this was a couple of months ago. So I was like, there's no way I can afford this. I'll buy the parts. I'll start with, junk bin motors. And then I will use sponsorship money or Patreon money to get the motor when I'm ready. Well, that motor is not available for $79 anymore. The cheapest I can find that motor, that specific motor, is somewhere around like $150. So it's like doubled. And so I'm at the point now where I'm like, what do I do? Right? So I have a couple options. The CNC mill that Banggood sent me, it has a big electric motor, probably, bit smaller than your fist, but that's a size 775 motor. A lot of RC cars use 540 and 550 motors. This is a 775, so it's much bigger than a typical RC car motor. I found out that series of motor, that starts at something like 380, goes up to 550, then 775. You can get a 997 motor, which is literally the size of a can of Coke. Okay? This thing is big. The mounting screws you use for this thing are M5, I believe, and the shaft is 6.3 millimeters in thickness. These are big motors. I found some on AliExpress for like $20 each. So I was going to get 2 of these motors, believe it or not. And these things are, I think they're 400 watt each. So yeah, would have 800 watts of power to fight you, on the force feedback. But the seller emailed me back and said, oh, the shipping company won't take it. The magnets are too powerful. What I think happened is they had no idea how much it costs to ship things to Canada these days. And when he saw the shipping cost, he's like, we're just going to say that the company won't take it. So basically, I had to wait like 2 weeks to get a refund from AliExpress because you have to wait for the shipping, the tracking number to not change, or the tracking in the tracking number to not change for a couple of weeks. Then you can request your money back. The seller could not cancel my order and give me my money back because that would mean he was selling something that he couldn't ship. And therefore, he would get in trouble, like his rating would get in trouble on AliExpress. So he refused to do that. And so I had to wait for my money. But the plan is still to make a sim racing wheel. It's just that I have to figure out a good cost of performance motor. I have some motors here. And they, as far as I know, they have to be brushed. If someone knows a brushless motor project like this that I can take the coating from, then I'll look for a strong, powerful brushless motor. But for the moment, I'm sticking with a brushed motor because I know I can find projects for that. And don't forget, I am useless at code, so it needs to be an actual project. So if you guys know of something, let me know in the comments below. But basically, yeah, that was my plan, is to use a brushed motor and these big 997 motors or that big scooter motor. I'll still be on the lookout, but yeah, it's just not going to happen right at this moment. And so, yeah, that was a little bit disappointing. Now, I can buy the 775 motors for much cheaper. I think those will be about $20 each. But they're much smaller. They have much less current. they're not as powerful. I really want a nice, strong sim wheel. So I don't know. I'll work on it and we'll see what happens. But then all this motor stuff got me to thinking, I would love an electric outboard. I have 2 outboard motors for my little 12-foot rowboat, which you can see on SE Condary, the rowboat, not the motors. But the problem is they are old. They're like 1960-some Johnson and Evinrude. And the problem with outboards is that I can fix them. I am not worried about having to fix them, but you need parts for them. And the parts are not necessarily difficult to find, but they are expensive. It's when you go from the car world, where I've learned to shop for the cheapest parts possible, the parts for outboards are actually quite expensive, especially those old ones. So for example, my pull start assembly, some of the teeth got knackered because the assembly is a little bit chowdered up. And so there's a pin that needs to stay in place. It doesn't stay in place, and it allows like vibrations to move the gear to rub together. So the plastic gear that you use to pull start is like worn, plus the shaft, the whole thing. It's like getting all worn out. So looking on eBay, there's a pull start assembly, like the whole thing, used for like $150. And if I want just the plastic part that I need, and then fix, the worn out parts some other ways, like, take it to a welding shop or something, just the pull start part is like $40. So it's like, it's getting very difficult to find these parts for a good deal. And especially here in Ottawa, you can find these engines used still because, boat motors last a long time. I mean, they're only used in Canada. They can only be used for like 4 months out of the year. But people want ridiculous amounts of money for a motor. They probably want something like $700. And what ends up happening is usually you buy one that's in good shape for like $700-800, and then your old one becomes the parts motor. But that means when this part fails again, you've got the exact same part but broken on your other one. So it's becoming difficult. So what I was thinking is I would want a big electric motor and replace the gasoline power head, the engine part, with an electric motor. But now I'm thinking, where the heck am I going to get an electric motor that can power something like that? And then I came up with 2 options. So one, there is a manufacturer of golf cart motors, electric golf cart motors, just south of the border in northern New York State. I could go there. I could pick up a motor. It's actually not that expensive. I mean, it's expensive, but when we're talking about outboards, everything's expensive. So I think it'd be like $700. So that's really expensive. But again, if I could get a sponsor for that video, it wouldn't be so bad. I would maybe be out of pocket $400 or $500, which is reasonable for an outboard like that. Or if you guys remember, I had Robert Dunn on the podcast, and he had converted a alternator into a motor. Now, he's not the first one to do this. You can convert an alternator to an electric motor. It's actually not that difficult. Robert didn't have good success because he had it in a go-kart. The thing with a go-kart is there's no slippage. When you accelerate, when you want to accelerate, or when you hit the throttle, what happens is the motor tries to turn, but if it encounters resistance because of the wheels of the go-kart have traction in the grass, and the rotor doesn't turn as much as the controller thinks it turns, then it'll stall out and just freak out and not work. But on an outboard motor, you constantly have the slip of the water. The water is not firm. And so I think if you just take the gasoline head off of the outboard and put on, an adapted alternator, I think you could make a fairly high power motor for fairly cheap. Now, the problem here is that an alternator is not a permanent magnet motor. In fact, it works by, we power the rotor, the part inside that turns, with 12 volts from the battery, and that makes an electromagnet, and then that electromagnet excites the coils on the outside, on the stator, and that creates, it generates electricity when combined with the input rotation of the engine. So you can convert them, I think, at least. This part I haven't researched, so this is all off the top of my head, but this is what I'm thinking of doing. So I'm thinking of getting neodymium magnets, really powerful magnets from Amazon, 3D printing a rotor to replace the rotor, and then getting a shaft and making the two end pieces out of 3D printed materials, and converting an alternator stator, basically just the windings on the outside, into an electric motor, permanent magnet electric motor. So the problem here is that I'm a dum-dum. I'm not an engineer. And so it would all be trial and error, and neodymium magnets are super expensive now. So it'd be $50 to do a trial and error project, which will take me, hundreds of hours in CAD, trying to source bearings and all sorts of things. But the end product could be an outboard motor, running on 24 volts that outputs, 1 or 2 horsepower, 3 horsepower maybe. And I have a trolling motor, as you could see on my secondary channel. But the problem with trolling motors is they are not designed for speed. They're designed for torque. And so your maximum speed is actually fairly low. And if you replace the propeller with a propeller with more pitch, you don't actually go much faster because the motor has like a max RPM, which is fairly low. And so all that ends up happening with a bigger propeller is you typically just overload the motor. But an outboard motor is meant to spin very quickly. So the shafting, the bearings, the foot, the gear, the props, they're all meant for relatively high speed, spinning. And so I think it would be great if you can use, an outboard motor with a power head that's blown, and just use the gearing of it. Don't even bother with anything else. And just, stuff the electric motor inside the cowling. And I think it should work. And so this is where my attention has been going to, because that 9.5 that I have, Johnson Evinrude, I have a second one, which is a parts motor, which the pull start came off of. And I can just take the engine off and put it to the side, and I have a spare engine for when mine eventually blows, but at the same time I'll have the gearing, the foot, all that stuff to try to make an electric outboard out of. And I think that'd be a fantastic project. It's just I would have to buy materials and I would have to commit to it. This is not going to be something that I can do in a weekly video. It would have to be it's a massive undertaking. So if anybody has any wisdom to share about that, or if you're a company that supplies lithium batteries, neodymium magnets, or do conversions like this, let me know in the comments below. I'm looking for advice on this, because I would love to do this. And my sponsor PCBWay, they've told me I can use their 3D printing service. So even if the rotor needs to be strong, I can design it, prototype it in PLA, and then send it off to them, and they'll print it in high impact nylon or something, or glass fiber, or fiber reinforced materials. So that's not the issue here. It's just my design time. So yeah, if you guys have any information on that, don't be shy. Let me know. Also, if you're excited about this project, that's also something I need to know. Because, a little bit of feedback is kind of like a creator's dream, right? To get a little bit of feedback. So I was concerned that I wouldn't have enough to talk about in an hour plus by myself. And so I solicited questions for a Q&A section from YouTube, from Patreon and from Twitter. By the way, if you didn't know why YouTubers have Twitter accounts, it's because YouTube can ban your channel, even if it's erroneously. And then there's no way to contact YouTube. The only way to contact YouTube is within YouTube. And so if your account gets banned, you can't contact them. So the only way to get your account back if something goes wrong is to tweet at Team YouTube. So I'm trying to build a following on Twitter so that, my words have weight to it. If ever I get banned, I can be like, excuse me, you messed up. And then my followers can retweet or whatever. So if you want to do me a kindness, follow me on Twitter at YouTube_simple. All right, let's start with Patreon because they're basically paying for access. So let's do that. I have a few questions from Mark here. One, why are clowns so creepy? I don't know. They just are. Do you have any pets? Why not? My wife and I would love a dog at this point, but our house is too small. And also it's pretty messy because we live busy lives. So yeah, dog's not great. Plus we have a backyard, which is 90% pool, which I would not, I would not recommend it. I'm never ever buying a house with a pool ever again. It's been nothing but a money sink and you can't just let it become a swamp. So big regrets there for sure. But I do have one fish tank left with a single shrimp left. And when that shrimp dies, I'm selling all my aquarium equipment. I used to like fish keeping, but now it's just become a major hassle. And yeah, that's gone. I love water. I love being on the water. I love fish. I don't have time for them, unfortunately. Do I have any cool tattoos? No, I do not. I don't have any tattoos. I feel like my life is always in flux, so I don't have anything like permanent to hang on to that I would want tattooed. So, if I had a pet and it died or something, that would make sense to me. Or, so yeah, no tattoos. What's my favorite song? It's hard to say. I like a lot of different music, mostly anything but country music. It's just not my jam. No shade to people who like country music. I can name you a couple I like. The Life by Styles P, really good. I grew up with rap and hip hop in the 90s and 2000s, so it'll probably be that. You can't go wrong with some classic Snoop Dogg. Press Play is a good song by him. More modern songs, I don't know. I've been rocking some Dua Lipa when I need to be productive. Pop music is just the greatest thing to just have something playing to try to get the blood pumping. So Dua Lipa is great for that. I've been also listening to like productivity music. I've been listening to basically dubstep covers of pop songs because. And I know the genre is like super narrow, but it's stuff like that just gets me going. So Magical World by Nelly Furtado, the I Love Dubstep remix of it is pretty good. Lights by Ellie Goulding, also by I Love Dubstep. Let's see, stuff like when I'm in the mood for it. I really love some of the classic Nirvana songs. Yeah, it's kind of everywhere. Sort of my likes. Sometimes I'll be in a Lynyrd Skynyrd phase. It depends. So yeah, I like too much to really narrow it down to anything specific. So yeah. Do I prefer hockey or curling? None, I would say. Hockey ranks higher, but not by much. I'm not a big sports fan. I find curling to be incredibly boring. At least hockey has a little bit of action to it, but I don't really follow sports. Not really that interesting. All right, so next questions are by the Deaf Palm. Have you heard from M yet? No, I have not. I need to contact M. Also, he asks, SG1 or Atlantis? Never heard of Atlantis. I'm assuming SG1 is Stargate 1? Stargate? I don't know. Probably none of those. So yeah. Maybe if you want to know how much of a nerd I am, I do like Star Trek. I did like Star Trek Picard more recently, so that was good. Describe my face. So it's a face. It has glasses. It has a beard, which I now just trimmed because I'm going to work. He says, or draw a sketch. Not going to happen. Even show it in a video. Well, here, I'll tell you an example. If any of you guys watched Home Improvement a long time ago, a sitcom, basically my wife's community, Verowak on Twitch.tv, so twitch.tv/Verowak, they had a competition to see who could figure out a photo that's closest to my likeness, because nobody has seen my face. And the winner of that was someone who submitted Richard Karn, which plays Al Borland in Home Improvement. So I don't look exactly like Al Borland, but he was the closest that her viewers could figure out. So maybe at some point I'll do a competition for my fans to submit photos and see who gets the closest. But Richard Karn at the moment, who plays Al Borland in Home Improvement, that's the closest facsimile to my face. Def Palm also asks, why is my chair wonky? Probably because you fidget in it too much, or you didn't buy a high quality chair. So you can be like me and you can find a high quality chair in the trash. I got a steel case, I don't know, some office chair. I found it in the trash. The armrests are broken, but it doesn't matter. It was way better than my garbage chair. Why can't I be bothered editing any of the videos I've recorded? Well, if you guys didn't know, Scott from the Def Palm has been making like an average of 1.5 or 2.5 videos a day for the last couple of weeks. So he's on fire. Go check out his channel. And that's probably why he's too tired to edit any of the videos he's recorded. When are you going to buy some broken test gear to try fixing it so you can add it to your equipment collection? Then he says, go on, just get one. I'm sure it'll stop there. I mean, maybe it will. Don't listen to me. I have a problem. I'm actually not that great at fixing things, and I wouldn't have any way to know if they are fixed. So maybe if I find something here on Kijiji, which is basically the Canadian Craigslist, maybe then I'll try to fix it if it's really good price. But there's no way. Plus, you know what? Shipping to Canada is ridiculous. Like, I'm just looking, one of those motors I was talking about, the scooter motors, is like it's like $60 of shipping from the States to here. So it's like so prohibitive. At some point, I will stop being, thinking that the human malware is a risk, and I'll visit the States. And maybe when I'm down there, I'll pick up some test gear. But other than that, no thanks. Have I thought, Steve now from Patreon still asks, have I thought about doing a series of videos on a beginner's guide to Arduino? Steve, I have like 6 videos already. I should continue it though, so maybe you have a point there. All right, next I'm going to turn to Twitter because I would like you guys to follow me on Twitter, but this one also is kind of cheating because it's from my wife. She's super supportive. Again, twitch.tv/Verowak. Would you like it if your house was set up so you can control everything from your phone, like heating, cooling, turning on the lights, TV, opening doors, etc.? From my phone, not really. But having a central control center to control everything would be great. And, you know, maybe an added functionality, I could do it from my phone, but I think for the most part, I just want to like power on my computer while I'm making my coffee upstairs, or start my coffee from when I'm in bed, something like that. And so having like one common control center is the goal, I think, one day. But then I guess added functionality to the phone. Yeah, I just have, I have issues with apps. They never work properly. And so it's, yeah. Yes, I would. How about that? Also, I can see that the screenshots I took actually cut off the YouTube comments. So let me go find that real quick. So basically, from the YouTube comment section. Here's some more questions. Oh boy, my wife sent another 5, 6, 7 questions from there. Here it goes. Is there a convention or something of the sort that you would like to go to? If not a convention, what about a city that you would love to visit to either learn more about electronics or shopping to your heart's content? Yes. So maker fairs, that's the big one. They're kind of far and few in between in Canada, and they're a little bit of a pain in the butt to travel to for a Canadian because air travel is ridiculous up here. But yeah, maker fairs and definitely Shenzhen, China. I would love to go visit the Hwasong Bay. What is it? Hwasong Bay? Basically, Scotty of Strange Parts. I would love to live his lifestyle for a short little while. I think it would be fantastic, and I think I'd go broke because I'd probably buy a shipping container and buy out whole stocks of stuff and send them back here. So yeah. Do you have any advice for younger you in life? This is difficult, but I think what I would say is to continue to learn programming. In high school, I was actually learning programming pretty quickly. And once I was done that, I still continued my love for computers, but I never continued programming, and now I'm regretting it. So definitely, if you're young, learn programming. If you're old, learn programming. If I could wrap my head around it, I think I would be a much happier person. 3, I hear you're into gaming. What are some of your all-time favorite video games? So for the moment, I'm into racing games. But like for pure enjoyment, I would probably say Terraria. 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 There we go. That is, it's an indie game. It looks very cheesy if you're just looking up screenshots, but play it for a bit. Trust me, it's great. 4, I hear you're into food. What are some of your all-time favorite foods? I am one of those people who can eat the same thing every single day and be happy. If I had to pick between, like basically there's 2 foods that I love the most. There's this a little place on Montreal Road in Ottawa called Eastview Pizza. It's a hole-in-the-wall, family-owned. I think they're a Lebanese family. And they make the most awesome pizza you'll ever have. It is pricey, but it is quality. So Eastview Pizza, get yourself a large Canadian. Canadian is usually, you get pepperoni and cheese like normal. And then they add mushrooms and bacon onto it. So not Canadian bacon. That's not a lot of Canadians eat quote unquote Canadian bacon. So yeah, so it's either that pizza specifically or a shawarma plate, a chicken shawarma plate. So apparently Ottawa is the shawarma capital of the world. Shawarma is like the greatest food, especially if they have great garlic sauce. It's basically spit roasted chicken on these massive spits. And then you usually get like a lettuce salad with some sort of lemon dressing, some tabbouleh, which is, I think it's mostly chopped up parsley and other stuff inside. You get vegetables like pickles, pickled turnips, onions, tomatoes, and then you usually get choice of either white or seasoned rice. I love the seasoned rice. And then that spit roasted chicken, garlic sauce, hummus. It's delicious. You can't go wrong. It's great. Unfortunately, my favorite spot, which was Mango's Shawarma, has shut down. But there's one on another road. There's a second location. It's not quite as good, but it's pretty damn good. So there we go. I hear you're into movies. What are some of your all-time favorite movies? That's hard to say. Like I'll get back to some movies sometimes, but I think at the moment I like the vibe of the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. So it's just like a overall good vibe, good music, nice visuals. I think they're pretty damn good movies. Am I a morning person, a night owl, both, or none? None. I'm just tired all the time. I think I'm just getting old, and I think anxiety and stuff is getting to me. So I never have energy. But I think I would err more to a nighttime person than a morning person. What do you like to listen to in the background when you're working on things for your channels? Mostly podcasts. If I have to be working, it's either the hype music I was talking about earlier or podcasts. And my guilty pleasure is the H3H3 podcast, Ethan Klein, Ela Klein, the whole crew. If they ever had me on, to say hello, or even if they ever sort of reached out to say that they heard my podcast and they appreciate that I'm a fan, that would make my day. I can't say enough good things about them. If you're sort of new to sort of the YouTube, I guess, drama scene, it might feel like it's really not for you. But I find it really entertaining. And the biggest thing is that it's not electronics, because I watch a lot of electronics related videos. I couldn't count on both my hands and both my feet how many channels I follow fairly regularly. And if I started to name some, I think I would forget others because there's so many, and I would feel bad about that. But I mean, basically, kind of like every freaking guest I've had on the podcast is because I watch their content and they're great. So if you're looking for content, just look at the titles of the podcast. But that means that there are too many channels to name. And at some point, I need to also turn off and just have, brain off pure entertainment. And that's why I listen to the H3 podcast. It's those kinds of videos. I also listen to non-electronics channels a lot, just to reset my brain, to try to, not have electronics be 100% of my life. So Camping with Steve is another one I watch. Andy's Fishing and Catch and Cook is another one I watch a lot. Yeah, I couldn't name all the stuff I watch because it's a lot. Next question is on YouTube again from Dilshad. I've seen him in my comments section before. With your expertise, both automotive and electronics engineering, please don't call me an engineer. That is a little bit insulting to actual engineers. What electronic projects have you done to your car? I've done like none. I'll tell you, especially when I was a professional mechanic full time, the last thing I wanted to do is work on my own cars. And I always drive old cars. And so when I have to go out and work on my car, it's actually like fixing things or doing maintenance stuff. So I don't really have the energy to do electronics projects for my car. But I will tell you, I did build an electronics project for another tech. Is I had a little Arduino, like a DigiSpark, turn off the traction control in his car every time he started it, because traction control by law has to be there from the manufacturer. And he was getting, it's when you hammer the throttle and you get a little bit of wheel slip, the car just puts on the traction control. And so it could be difficult when you're trying to merge on a really short merge and you don't have time to turn off traction control at that point. So he just wanted traction control off, let the tires slip a bit, and he can always moderate with the throttle a little bit. And so, yeah, I had a little DigiSpark that basically when you turned on the car, it waited 5 seconds, then it flipped the switch for traction control off, and then it released it, and then that's all it did. So it turned off traction control. What are some of the challenges and opportunities automotive electronics has for the home hacker? That's a good question. Not much. I think what's great about automotive electrical and electronics in general is that because the automotive world is very big on right to repair, even though we don't call it right to repair, That means that there's parts availability like crazy. So if you just need like a powerful motor to actuate something, just to, I don't know, to move a giant waving hand or, a skeleton skull or something, you can go get from any junkyard or any parts supplier for very inexpensive a window motor, like a power window motor or a windshield wiper motor or a sliding door motor or stuff like that, and to use in your projects. And in the end, like, yeah, there's some control logic behind them, but in the end, a motor's a motor. So if you can just access the positive, negative of those by either splitting open the module or whatever, there you go. So you can get very powerful motors for very inexpensive. Also, you can get all kinds of things. Like if you want to use it as is, for example, electric power steering systems. They're mostly self-contained these days. There's some, it's all built in. So if you really had a need for something like that, I mean, it's there. But also what happens for the home hacker is it brings down the price of a lot of things. So when the automotive manufacturers start adding stuff like radar, for example, which they're adding now for adaptive cruise, in a couple of years, those radar modules will be so inexpensive, I'm sure hackers will be using them. Cameras are becoming incredibly common. Very high resolution, high powered camera with lots of processing power behind them are being used for collision detection and stuff like that. And so in a couple of years, that stuff's going to trickle down to the home hackers as well. So that alternators, ignition coils, stuff like that, you can make cool little projects with those things. So that's what I would say. My car is from the early 2000s. These days, to be more visible, I drive everywhere with the headlights on. What are the implications of changing the headlights from incandescent to LED? Is it worth it? Would it work? Yes, but no. Basically, here in Canada, we have daytime running lights. Europe has it as well. Basically, whenever you key on, your car has to have the two headlights on, at least a low amount of light emitted from the front of your car. So we have that in Canada already. Now, from incandescent to LED, is it worth it? Yeah, if you buy the good quality ones. If you buy the cheapies, your car will see that the current is weird. It's different left to right or whatever, and it'll throw a code. But on top of that, if it's high output, it's going to be very hot. And not all solutions to cool those headlight bulb replacements are good. For example, on our OEM LED headlights, the whole interior is made out of cast aluminum. So it's all a big heat sink. So you're talking about, a couple pounds of aluminum, like literally more than a pound of aluminum to cool the LED headlights. Whereas those cheap bulbs you get, the heat sink is, only about the size of the diameter, double the diameter of a quarter. It's not a lot of area to dissipate heat. So as long as you have some that are well reviewed, you could do it, but otherwise I wouldn't bother. If I was a dictator, quote unquote, benevolent of my country, what would you want to fix? I try to avoid politics here, but one thing that's super important to me is the healthcare system. I would say the education system too, but I'm kind of biased because I'm within it, so I would benefit directly. But I would invest massively into healthcare. I would increase nurses and doctors' wages because at the moment we're being drained, brain drained. A lot of doctors and nurses are moving to the States because they're privatized system. They see fewer patients because some people can't afford to go, don't have insurance, or even the deductibles are too big. So they have fewer patients and they make more money because it's privatized. It's for business. And so I don't like the idea that someone could possibly not afford to get healthcare. But I would invest in our healthcare. So try to train up more doctors, more nurses, sponsor programs to have that happen. Make sure the salaries are adequate. And expand it. I would love to cover dental, eye, drugs, all this stuff. That would be my platform, and this is why I could never be a politician, because some people would say that's wasting money because they don't need healthcare at this very moment. But I would say a healthy population is a happy population. And I don't think your income should dictate the amount of healthcare you get. That simple. I am from the wrong side of the planet, but blessed to be in a place with rich food culture, yet no Canadian restaurants. What foods are uniquely Canadian? I could start a culture war if I say poutine, or poutine as you English people normally hear it. According to most Canadians, it is a Canadian food. According to people from the province of Quebec, it is not a Canadian food, it is a Quebec food. Be that as it may, I would say poutine is Canadian. I don't know much else that is Canadian, although I am learning that there's some things we have here that aren't available as commonly in other parts of the world. I heard butter tarts are Canadian, which surprises me. I guess beaver tails are Canadian. That's where we hunt beavers in the spring, and we chop off their tails and we let them go. And then in the fall, by the fall, they have regrown their tail, and they need their tail for energy stores for the winter. And so they winter, and then we trap them again in the spring, chop off their tails. And basically it's just a deep fried tail. It tastes really good. If you're ever in Canada, you can have one of those. Yeah, not much that is uniquely Canadian, because a lot of the things that we associate with Canada are kind of like American things. Like we're very much culture vultures in that sense. We have Tim Hortons here, but don't let Tim Hortons fool you. They're owned by a multinational at this point. And honestly, most people that I know that go to Tim Hortons don't even like Tim Hortons. I don't go. McDonald's has better coffee. Don't at me. Last questions here from Kyle Allred. Seen him in the comments section a lot too. Dream home / workshop setup. Well, basically, I think a perfect workshop is multifaceted. So it'd have stuff like a laser cutter, a CNC type router, a sewing machine, gluing station, stuff like that. I think there's no limit to what you can do if you have all the tools available. So I would like all the tools, and mostly it's space. Everything should be available to use without moving a bunch of junk, which unfortunately at this point I'm starting to get buried in stuff. Our house is very small, and I'm going to have to make some hard decisions to get rid of some stuff, unfortunately, very shortly. Would you go to space if the opportunity presented itself? Absolutely. 100%. I would love to go to space, especially if I get old and it doesn't really matter if there's a space crash and I don't make it back. Definitely, I would 100% go to space. Gas or electric car? Perhaps both. Electric. I mean, if I could afford one, I'd already have one. My cars have all cost me, I think the most I've ever paid for a car was $2,500. That was my first car. My car's been getting cheaper ever since. So right now I drive a $400 Volvo. If I can get a $400 electric car, I'd be all over that. But the reason I can't get electric cars, I don't make enough money at the moment. I do have dreams of building my own custom electric car, because I think with the help of some sponsors and, cleverly reusing parts from other vehicles, I think you can build something pretty well. Because, like I said, cars have the right to repair down packed. I think I priced it out with all brand new parts. You can get front and rear knuckles, wheel bearings, hubs, upper control arm, lower control arm, full strut, like spring and strut, front and rear. I think I checked for a Acura TL, a 2008 TL Type S, and it was like $1,800 for all brand new parts. At a junkyard, it would be like $400 for all those parts. And so I think like the suspension, the easiest bit. The chassis, it would be something like either a tub frame made out of plywood and fiberglass, plywood for the frame, fiberglass reinforcement. And then the expensive parts would be the lithium iron phosphate batteries, the motor controller, and the way to transmit the power. You probably need some CNC pieces to transmit the power from the motor to the wheels. But I dream of that. If someone wants to work with me, we work on it together. Hit me up. If you want to fly me down, at Hacksmith, if you want to fly me down for a couple of weeks, and I have everything in mind already. I just need the impetus to do it, and I would love to build my own. How well prepared are you for a disaster? Food, power, shelter, potential travel? Not well prepared. I'm more prepared now because Rock Solar has sent me a solar generator. So I've got 2 solar panels here, a little power pack with AC output. I got the AC unit, the inverter unit that you guys saw in a YouTube video. I'm getting more and more prepared. I've got batteries, but that's just by virtue of being interested in solar generation and stuff. Shelter, I can sleep in the Volvo. That's not a problem. My wife and I can both fit in the Volvo and sleep in there. Not a problem. If we need to travel, that would be the Volvo as well. Don't fail me now, little Volvo. How many injuries have you gotten? Not very many, but I did snap or I guess almost sever a ligament in my left index finger working on cars. I was in the shop. I was pulling on a piece of washer hose, and you released off the nozzle quickly, and then my hand went up, and I got slit open by a piece of sheet metal in the hood. Couldn't work for a couple months. Was in a cast. It really sucked. How do you want to DIY? How do you want to DIY, like car, house, PC, server, garden, clothes? More or less than you rather buy? I would rather DIY most of the stuff because, I suppose the big goal in DIY is customization. You build it the way you can. Also, it's usually cheaper because you can only buy the parts that you need, and also you know how to service it. So I would DIY pretty much all this stuff if I could. I would make my own clothes for sure, 100%. If I had the time, the impetus, the money, the know-how, I would do it. How big a family do you want? So my wife and I, that's all the humans, and I think if we could afford it, we'd probably have about 12 dogs, something like that. Dogs. Like Ricky Gervais once said, "I believe in dog." What superpower would you want? I would want a superpower where I point to my wife and all the dogs in the neighborhood run to her and tackle her, basically. That would be great. Either that or the power of coding. Learning programming has been a major thorn in my side. It is just not working with my brain. A lot of people have offered to help with coding projects, but that's kind of not the point. I just feel so useless looking at code, so coding, that's a good one. Favorite board game, video game, sport, general outdoor game like tag, for example. I like being on the water. That's my favorite thing. So rowing a canoe, a kayak, using the electric motor on the boat, gasoline powered motor on the boat. Yeah, those things. I love being out on the water. I think I need to organize my life to be outdoors more than I am now, for sure. Hopefully that's a good starting point. Okay, go wilder if you want. No, it's good, Kyle. So yeah, that's the end of the AMA section. You guys can also post questions on this podcast here on your podcast provider or wherever, and I'll try to answer them in a future one. But yeah, that's about it. There's a lot of things that I wish I could do where I don't have the money to, or the space to, or the time to, or the wherewithal, or the lack of anxiety, or whatever it be, or that I have to prioritize other things like trying to make income. I would love to start a private, teaching business where I teach, automotive professionals how to be better at their jobs. It's just the amount of, the amount of work that will go into that, and for not even a sure thing, it's a bit scary. So yeah, I'd love to build cars and especially electric cars. Right now, that's where I'm at. Because to me, the fact that you could charge your car from the sun, a big solar array, or have like a battery bank in your house that you charge during the day, and when you come home at night, you plug your car into that battery bank and it charges your car. These are all things that interest me to no avail, but they're not stuff you can build. You can't build a battery pack. You can build a pack, but you can't build the actual batteries. You have to buy them. You can't really build a motor, an efficient electric motor. You can build small ones that will, fidget on your desk or whatever. But like an honest to goodness motor requires sort of sandwich laminations of magnetic of magnet steel. Requires big neodymium magnets that are extremely powerful and extremely expensive. So these are all things that I wish I could do. And you know what? If the YouTube thing continues for, a number of years, the next, I don't plan on quitting. It's possible that I might garner enough popularity to try these projects out. But for now, I'll just keep dreaming, and hopefully you guys will keep dreaming along with me. So I want to thank you guys for listening to this episode. Make sure to throw me a subscribe if you think it's worth it. If it's worth your time to click that little box, that always helps. The numbers help. And honestly, if you want to help out the channel, the biggest thing you can do to help out the channel to make my dreams come true is to share the content with appropriate people. People that are interested in electronics or whatever, share the videos there. If someone on some forum is talking about stuff that I've covered in videos, you can link them to the video. The more attention the channel gets, the more, I guess, attention it'll get from sponsors, or the more income it'll generate, and the more opportunity I might have to, become some sort of like hacksmith type person. It's probably never going to get there, but I'm just saying, the more attention falls onto the channel, the better. If you want to directly support, best place to do that is on Patreon. You get early access videos. I think there's 4 or 5 videos up there at the moment of this recording. And otherwise, you can cheer me on from the comment section. I still read every single comment. And yeah, thanks for listening, guys. And thanks again, especially to my sponsors and my Patreons for helping me get through the tight times that I've had. Hopefully they'll be less tight coming forward. But with the contract economy, the gig economy, who knows? Thanks for listening.